forgot one thing. Look at this. Good to see all the brothers coming in. I'm trying not to be too excited. First of many, hopefully. Yeah, put on it.
Hey, how
all right.
How y'all doing?
Good morning, brother. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get us started. And I'd like to put a request. If all brothers could actually turn their cameras on.
I'll take a quick picture.
Yes, sir.
I see my brother Kwame out there. Yes, sir.
Go ahead, please turn on your cameras and you can unmute yourselves. All right, does brothers have their cameras on?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna go around real quickly for those who are on the line. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jonathan Jones, Jonathan C.W. Jones. I am the CEO of Ideation 4. I'm not going to get into talking about my company at this time, but at a later date, we will explore that and also explore the companies and books that all of the cohort members are involved in. So I'd like us to go around and take about 15 seconds, say your name, state, and position.
So I'll begin. Travis Bristol, assistant professor, UC Berkeley. And I'm currently in Oakland.
Welcome.
I'll go next. My name is Khalil Soare. I'm an elementary teacher in Baltimore City Schools. Just finished my first year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'll hop in. Kevin Simpson, Managing Director, KDSO Global, split time between Dallas and Dubai.
I'll go next. Dre Graham. I was the former, or I guess current, Florida Teacher of the Year. I now serve as the Executive Director for the Department of Education and here in Florida in independent education and parental choice.
Hey, brother, congratulations on that State Teacher of the Year. That's big time.
Thank you, sir.
Definitely. I'll jump in next. My name is Valerie Schenkel III. I go by Trey. I am currently in the Denver, Colorado metropolitan area, but I am in the process of relocating to Houston, back home to Houston, Texas, within the next 2 weeks. I am currently a 5th grade teacher, and I am an aspiring assistant principal. So I'm actually trying to interview for assistant principals as I'm relocating.
You know about all my material and my YouTube interview videos and all that good stuff? Oh,
he had the book ready.
Yeah, so hopefully I'll get to connect with you because I'm having some challenges leaving the classroom. So I'll have to talk to you about it later.
Yes, sir.
Hey, everybody. My name is Robert Hendricks, calling in from Boston, Massachusetts, and I'm the founder and executive director of He Is Me Institute.
Welcome. Who's next?
All right.
So my name
Go ahead.
Brother, go ahead. Sure. So Charles Williams, principal in the Chicago public school system, and founder of the CW Consulting educational services company.
Good stuff. What district are you? I get region, district. Where you at within Chicago?
So Network 3, far west side, the Austin neighborhood.
Okay.
Good
I'll jump
afternoon,
in.
brothers. My name is Johnny Allen. I'm the founder and executive director of the JK Movement up here in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Yes, sir.
Minnesota.
Yeah, the North Star State.
That's right. That's my brother.
Hop in. My name is Kwame Salfamenta, a middle school math teacher, now founder of Identity Talk Consultant LLC, currently in the Boston, Massachusetts area.
Okay.
Good stuff.
Well, good evening to everyone. My name is Terrell Collins. I reside in the Lithonia area. I actually just left my position as an English lecturer at Clayton State University to go into doctoral studies in the fall. So I'll be beginning doctoral studies in composition and rhetoric, and also teaching first year writing as well.
That's you. Big time. You look like a young brother too. You're young as you look, or you just look young.
I get that a lot. I get that I look like what like 14 or 15. If I could get 16, that's always a plus. But you know, I take it.
So I'll hop on. My name is Jeffrey Southall II, hailing from Omaha, Nebraska. Currently, I'm the assistant director for the Office of Civic and Social Responsibility at the University of Nebraska at Omaha.
Okay.
Good stuff. You got that Malcolm blood in you, man. Omaha.
Born and bred. Born and bred.
It is.
Okay. I guess I'll jump in. My name's Phil O'Neill. I'm the head choir director at Wood Creek Middle School in Humble ISD. That's right outside of Houston. So, brother, over in my corner, come check us out in Humble. We can use you, man. And I'm currently also the worship leader at the Tascasita United Methodist Church, and that's what I am. There you go. Oh, any alphas in here? I see one in that corner over there. Oh, there it is. Yeah, we everywhere.
Okay, I guess I'll go next. Name's Franz. I am currently a college counselor out here in Boston, Massachusetts, out in the Lexington Public Schools. I'm actually a former, I guess, student of Kwame, because he has a great program I was part of. Actually, starting next week or the next 2 weeks, I'll be entering my first course in my doctoral program. So, and just saying what's up.
Yeah, Hugh.
Yeah, that's my brother right there.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Other brothers who just joined us, please chime in, say your name, your position, and your state, please.
All right, so I'll jump in. My name is Rashard Kerman. I am in the state of North Carolina, and I'm a proud elementary principal. This is my first year in elementary, but I've been elementary, middle, high, early college, the whole gamut, K-12.
You served as a principal in all those levels?
Yes, sir.
All right. All right. Good stuff.
Whatever. Dr. Jamar, are you on? All right. I think we got just about everybody.
Can you hear me?
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
What's going on? Hey, what's up, gentlemen? This is Jamar Marks here. I'm in Atlanta. I'm an instructional coach here in DeKalb County Schools in Georgia. I also own my own consulting firm here where I coach doctoral students through their doctoral degrees, and I'm working on some other projects. I'm also helping Jonathan lead this project. He's been kind of a mentor for me on various other things, and it's exciting to be here. So I'm happy to be doing this with you guys.
Great stuff. Great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, Principal Kafele, I'm going to share my screen for a few minutes just to kind of get brothers grounded a little bit, and then we can get started.
Sounds good.
And brothers, please you can go ahead and turn your cameras off. All right, so welcome to our first session together. I just want to reiterate, I just want to say first off, thank you, Principal Kafele, for joining us. The UpLIFT publication, the overall long-term goal of this publication is being created in the spirit of decolonizing educational oppressive challenges that all of us have experienced at some point in our career. The other piece of it is that this publication will be utilized to actually develop our own philanthropic initiative. We will be establishing a fund for good, and those the proceeds from the publication will be used to re-grant individuals who come through the cohort, if that makes sense. And if you have questions about that, I can share more details about that in the near future. Now, today's speaker, Principal Kafele, has been in education over 20 years. As some of you may know, he's a distinguished master teacher. And today I asked him, he agreed to join us. And we're talking about how do we uplift us? We face a lot of challenges in the workforce. One example is fighting tokenism. So what we're going to do today is what I want is we're going to go through and let Principal Kafele share some words of wisdom and some resources with us. And then we're going to close out with a brief Q&A with him. And then I have some closing thoughts and details to share with you about the UpLIFT publication. So at this time, I will stop sharing my screen and let our guest chime in and share with us.
All right. Good afternoon to my brothers out there. You know, I'm looking at the time. I guess I got a few minutes over with that pre-written agenda, right?
Yes, sir. We're on. This is your time, Principal.
I won't go too long though. But I want to work my way backwards in terms of what I've been asked to address today. George Floyd happened, and I know we got the brother from Minnesota on here. George Floyd happened on May 25th, and then we had social unrest, starting off in Minneapolis, and then it just spread throughout the country. So as it spread, and the images were on television, folks were seeing it. Everybody was seeing it. Many were participating in terms of just the protest, etc. But what happened in terms of my capacity as an educator, as a consultant more so, folks started writing to me, asking me, let me be specific, white educators began to write me and ask me specifically for book recommendations. They said to me, I want to understand white privilege. I want to understand white supremacy. I want to understand white racism. So as I was getting those inboxes and DMs on Twitter, I made the very rapid decision. I said the books that they're looking for, because they were looking for analyses and critiques of what racism is, of what white supremacy is, what white privilege is. They were looking for books of that nature. And I decided, I said, you know, there's enough books out there. There are probably others making those recommendations. Those are not the books I'm going to recommend. I could recommend probably every one of those books that's on the market. But I said, if the teachers, these white educators, if they're to read critiques, analyses, theory on race, supremacy, privilege, etc., then they may or they may not understand it from a contemporary standpoint, contemporary 2020 standpoint. I said, in order for them to really understand the anger in the streets, the protests, the demonstrations, the rebellion, and the riots, in order for them to really grasp that, understand it, comprehend it, I said they have to understand the 401-year relationship between Black folks and white. So I said, instead of me recommending books that deal with racial dynamics, let me recommend books that deal with that relationship. And let's take it back to two places, I said. Number one, let's take it back to 1619 Jamestown, Virginia, but also Let's take it back beyond Jamestown. Let's take it back to Africa thousands of years ago. So that first and foremost, the reader, in this case, the white reader, the white educator, has an understanding of who Black folks are in America and in the whole Western Hemisphere, for that matter, or the diaspora, have an idea of who we are before enslavement, before becoming captives. So I wanted them to gain that kind of an understanding and dispel whatever stereotypes they may have had in their psyche. So I want them to understand the relationship between being Black or being African and science, the relationship between being an African and mathematics, architecture, astronomy, engineering, medicine, and I can go on and on, right? I said, I want them to realize that historically, this is who we are. Then I want them to transition into 1619, and I want them to understand the 1600s as being a Black person in relationship to the white population. The 1700s, the 1800s, the 1900s, and the new millennium. So I posted on my various social media platforms a book list that I've compiled over many years of about 150 different books that I wanted them to take a look at, with African history and African American history being the top two categories on the list. But what happened, which I anticipated, many of them started writing me, and not only the white educators, but Black educators as well, started writing me and asking. They said, "Can you reduce this list to like a handful that you would recommend that we start with?" And I said, "Fine." So here's the two, and I don't know. Obviously, I'm just meeting you all now, and I don't know where you are in this conversation. But I said, the first book, first and foremost for me, that I would recommend to a white educator that works with Black children is Introduction to African Civilizations by John Jackson. I said, let's let that be the starting point. There's so many others that I could recommend, but let me let that, because of the word introduction in the title, I said, let me let that be the first book. Again, Introduction to African Civilizations by John Jackson, so that they can understand Black folks before being captive, right? Coming over here through the Middle Passage. But secondly, I want them to have a full understanding of what life was between 1619 and the present. So Before the Mayflower by Lerone Bennett Jr., and secondarily, From Slavery to Freedom by John Hope Franklin. So a lot of folks have been posting the covers on social media saying to me, I got them. So now I'm going to assume they're going to read them and gain a fuller understanding, so that they can understand this whole outrage that's going on across the country, which is nothing new. It's just that we're seeing it played out on TV now. But this outrage about this relationship between Black and white. But I said I wanted to start backwards to work my way to what I'm on here for. So I wanted to give you that as a backdrop. I looked at the screen. I looked at each and every one of you as you came on. You're in various different capacities, but most of you are in K-12 schools. And quite frankly, I saw a lot of young lions on the screen who are just as hungry as I was when I entered the field of education in 1988. So I've been in education since '88 as a fifth grade teacher in Brooklyn, New York City. I'm a Jersey guy, but I started my career, my mission in Brooklyn. So when I went to Brooklyn as a first-year teacher, I did not enter the profession because I wanted to teach. I did not enter the profession because I wanted to teach math and science and social studies and language arts and whatever the other subject areas are. I entered the profession because when I was in undergrad school, I was introduced to a book in 1984 that transformed my thinking. At that juncture of my life, I was kind of just out there. So this book that I literally stumbled on was entitled To Kill a Black Man. Perhaps some of you read that book, To Kill a Black Man. And it was written by Louis Lomax. And it was a book about the parallels between the lives of Dr. King and Malcolm. And at that time in 1984, I didn't really know the two of them. So the book cover, the title intrigued me. So I read it in about 3 days. And I was so intrigued by both of them, but particularly Malcolm, that I went on and bought about over the next couple of years, about 25 different books on Malcolm. But then I went and consumed a lot of books on Dr. King. And from there, I developed this interest in African-American history. So just literally bought everything off the bookstore shelves at the Black bookstores in New York City. So my knowledge base in African-American history was extensive. So 2 years later, I decided I want to be a teacher. So when I entered a classroom, finally 2 years after the decision in 1988, I don't know anything. The only thing I know outside of my degree, which was a marketing degree that I decided I wasn't going to use, the only thing I knew was all this reading that I had done over those years I was in undergraduate school, which was 2 years in a 4-year school. So I had accumulated by graduation about 500 books. So I'm seeped into African-American history and culture. It's all I know. It's my foundation. And then I enter a classroom in Brooklyn of 100% Black students, African-American, African-Caribbean. So all I know is that literature. So I'm walking into the classroom as this new Black male teacher where I'm the only one in the building, despite the fact I'm in Brooklyn, hungry, right? Hungry to get this information out to these fifth graders who the majority of them had been retained twice. So they should have been seventh graders. So I want to teach them their story through mathematics. I want to teach them their story through language arts, through science, through social studies, etc. I want to teach them their story. So that's precisely what I did. And I enjoyed it so much that I decided to come back home to Jersey, get certified here, and then build on those successes in that first year. So now I'm taking it to another level in terms of infusing their story into everything we did. So for long story short, because I want to open it up for you guys, I become a principal. I did that for 14 years. But once again, all I knew was the story. That's all I knew. So that became my foundation. So I couldn't be politically correct because I didn't know what political correctness was, if that makes sense to you. All I knew was that I had a full grasp of the African story. So let me infuse that into what we do from my capacity of principal, right? So I'll say that I'll be very blunt with all of you, particularly those of you who are much younger in the profession, in the education profession. I want to say this to you. More than likely, you got into this profession in part or in large part or wholly something to do with Black children. Like there was something about you that you felt you had something to offer, something to inspire, something to inform, something to empower Black children. Mine was very specific. It was Black children, but it was more so specifically Black young men, Black boys. I said, I want to defy every stereotype and generality that exists about these boys. I want to show the world what these boys can do when they got the right person in their space, but the right person has the right information. In other words, you're my students and I know your story. My job is to convey it to you so that you can walk in it. So that's who I became. So now as a principal, I'm still raw. I'm still green. I'm still naive. I'm still gullible. So I go to the superintendent of schools as a first year principal in 1999. And I said 98. And I said to him, I said, I would like to Africanize the curriculum. Because I was in a city called East Orange, New Jersey. And the student population there was 100% Black. So I had a flexibility that someone in a diverse community and school district may not have. So I may not use the word Africanize. If I'm somewhere diverse, I may say I want to diversify curriculum. But here I didn't have to use that language. I want to Africanize curriculum because I want these young people to see themselves. So I said, Doc, I want to turn this school into an institute of African-centered studies. Will you allow me to do it? He said, yeah, I'll allow you to do it, but I'm going to hold you accountable. I said, give me 3 years. When those 6th graders become 8th graders, because it was a middle school, I promise you we'll be the #1 ranked school in this district. So there's a book, and I have it right here conveniently. You may have seen this book or read this book or at least heard of this book, African American History: Journey to Liberation by Dr. Molefi Asante, the professor that created the first African Studies PhD program in the world. There was never one that existed until he created it at Temple University. I took this book and made this a standard text. And then I went and wrote a curriculum. We were at Sojourner Truth Middle School in East Orange, a 6 to 8 public school, wrote the curriculum to correspond with this book. And then we get busy. Year 1, year 2, year 3, those 6th graders are 8th graders. We get test scores. I'm not a test score guy, but I understand as a principal, I have to make sure that those scores are where they should be. Not only are we #1 in the district, but we were #1 in the state of schools of similar demographics, meaning students of color and poor. So the question became from many quarters, how did you guys do that? How did you move so quickly to those levels? And I said, very simple. I said, we introduced them to themselves, because we had a school full of young people, as many schools across America do, that do not recognize who that is in their mirror. So we said, I can't get a youngster to be proficient in mathematics and science and social studies, language arts, if youngster is grappling with who that is historically and culturally in his or her mirror. So I said, first and foremost, let me introduce them to themselves, the biggest, best kept secret on the planet Earth. Black folks, who are you historically? Well, you got a lot of young people, in fact, a plethora of young people in schools that do not know, and neither do their teachers, and neither do their parents, and neither does community. So you got folks walking around in the world who are not recognizing the greatness that's flowing through their veins. So I said, let me introduce them to themselves, and the academics will take care of itself, because they will now have knowledge and conviction of the greatness that lies within them. So that required me, and I know I'm going like way somewhere, but work with me, y'all. It required me to train my teachers, because because if I bring the zeal, if I bring the passion, it doesn't mean my teachers share the same zeal and passion if they don't have a knowledge base. So one of the first things I did was introduce them to Carter G. Woodson, introduce them to the miseducation of the Negro. And I want so that we can analyze that, critique that, and they could understand what Dr. Woodson meant when he said, when you control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. You do not have to tell him not to stand here or over yonder. He will find his quote unquote proper place and he will stay in it. You do not need to send him to the back door. He will go without being told. In fact, if there is no back door, he'll cut one for his special benefit. His education makes it necessary, period. I said, I got to get my staff to understand that. I got to get my staff. I got to educate my staff. I got to unravel a lot of the crap they got K-12 and then in pre-service program, undergrad school. And then I got to remold them. I got to reshape them so that they're looking at these youngsters through a brand new set of lenses, so that they see them not as at a deficit, but see them as a surplus. Doesn't see them at risk, but see them at potential, at promise, at most highly capable or most probable. So, but it's a matter of building this team and building this culture where we can be that person. So as it relates to one of the reasons I was asked to come on here today, because I know a lot of you brothers are probably operating in isolation. If you came to the school the way I just described, for example, and and of course I wouldn't know specifically if that's your situation, but I know it's many brothers across the country situation. You come there like I did, you might not have a job, right? You might be on the outside looking in. So I had to figure out how to be my authentic self, but know how to maneuver within a system that was not designed for a person like me to be within it, right? So now here I am the only African American teacher in the building when I was in Brooklyn and when I was in New Jersey. I've never had a black colleague before that was a man. I had women, but I never had a brother that was a colleague that I could lean on, that he could lean on me, and we can strategize together what we're doing. I had to do this thing by myself. But and if we're doing a Q&A, then I'm gonna stop and open up the floor so we can do that. But see, here's the thing. I'm going back, and I'll kind of wrap it up here, and then we'll do the Q&A. I'm going back to my why. You know, sometimes when we talk about the why, sometimes it tends to be a cliche-ish conversation, but for me, it's far beyond cliche. That why is absolutely critical, crucial. Your purpose, your reason, your because. It is absolutely crucial because you have got to walk in it. It's got to be narrow. It's not like this. That's your everything. Your why is like this. And my why was simply, I'm going to build men out of these boys. Everything else I did, it was just part of the job, right? But the why was personal. See, this is professional. This is just what we got to do. This is what's in the job description. But the why, this ain't got nothing to do with a job description. This is me now. And I'm saying I'm in this building, I'm in this profession, I'm in this practice because I have an agenda, which is very personal. So I'm not going to let anybody take that away from me, regardless of the forces that are in the building, the forces that are in the district. If there's anybody on this call or if you know folks that know me in East Orange, I went up against the forces, right? I mean, tooth and nail. It was a major television news, radio news story when I went up against the forces. I was suspended. I was up for termination, but I had the wherewithal to connect with the community and the parents. So the community and the parents fought that battle. All the media out here covered it. And I was reinstated the night of my termination hearing. What did I do wrong? I stood up for these black kids. I said, ain't nobody gonna ram these kids in the floor as long as I'm here, right? So I won the battle, but I had to have the backbone in the spine in order to recover from what I had to deal with being dragged through the media, headline stories in the newspaper, radio, New York radio, New York television, all that kind of stuff. But here I sit, you know, continuing to grind. So I'm saying to you, if your situation is those forces, because you're trying to be yourself, you be your authentic black self, and you're finding it difficult, of course, we can, if there are questions about that, we can talk about that, because I don't want to necessarily talk about things that you don't have a question about. But if so, then throw the question at me in a minute, and we can talk about that. But at the end of the day, those black children, they need you to be you. And they need you to be the same person that walked in that building that had come in there because of a why. There was a why that said, I want to be a teacher. There was a why that sent you to undergraduate school or whatever the pathway was that you got in here. You can't deviate from the why because of the forces, right? Whatever that why was that said, I want to be in a classroom with young people. I want to be in a school with young people leading, whatever it was. You can't depart from that because of forces. You've just got to find a way to maneuver through it and around it while still being your authentic self, right? I'm gonna leave it right there and open up the floor, if that's the format, and see what we got here.
Principal Kafele, first off, Dre Graham here.
Yes,
first off, thank you so much for taking the time out to speak with us. Just so many things that you said resonated.
Hey, Dre, give me a pick. Jonathan, can you turn the cameras on?
Oh, I'll turn it on. Yes, sir. I'm getting my hair done, so that's why. It's all good. It's too late now. We're up. You can see me. But my question is very quick. Just you mentioned I was taking a list of all the books that you were talking about to own personal library, and you mentioned To Kill a Black Man. That book, I can't find it for anything less than like when they do mass production for like $1,000.
No, right?
$900. Do you know where we could find that, and so that we'd be able to use that as a resource for ourselves?
Yeah, somebody, because I put it out there, and folks were looking for it, and they were telling me all those exorbitant prices. But somebody found it on eBay, There's a couple of people. So try some of those kinds of sites. It's somewhere, okay. And maybe if enough of us start looking for it again, it'll go back into print. You know, because it needs to be around because it's a powerful, potent book. You know, so
Absolutely.
Yeah, see what we could do.
Can you tell us the author again? Lewis
Lomax.
Lomax. Okay.
Powerful author. You know, he was ready to do a follow-up on that book, and he was driving through New Mexico right after Malcolm's assassination, and he was killed in an auto accident. So that's always been viewed as being very suspicious.
Well, I got a follow-up question for you. This has been amazing. Thank you very much for your time.
Appreciate it.
My question for you is right in line with kind of how you started off the conversation. I would like you to answer the following. What is your Dear White People gem for colleagues working with us?
Yeah. But bottom line is, as utopian as it may sound, if you got Black children in your school, and you ask me that question in that particular context, they have to be educated. And if you got some backward Black folks in that building, they have to be educated as well, right? So and that sounds easy, but here's the thing. Younger me was like a in-your-face type of guy, like, yo, I got this knowledge, I'm trying to jam it down your throat. I used to do that to young people outside of school. I used to do it to any adults that were in my vicinity. If you came around me, you're getting a history lesson, and I'm trying to jam it down your throat. That's who I used to be. But I evolved with time and experience and wisdom, right? And I figured something out. People skills. You could be in a building with some far right people, and they may not want to hear your perspective, but yet you know that they're in a classroom with your students. So now, instead of me trying to ram something down their throat, which is just going to give them license to try to ram their ideology back down mine, I said, why don't I use some people skills the same way as a good salesperson sells whatever it is they sell, whether it be automobiles, houses, whatever. The top producer is always the one with the people skills. The top producer is always the one who's not thinking about product, but thinking about relationship with a potential customer. That's the one that sells the most. So you go to any auto dealership wherever y'all live, and you ask the general manager, can I see the top producing salesperson? And you ask that person what makes them so good at what they do. They're not going to tell you because they know cars, because they know features of cars, because they know benefits of cars. They're going to tell you because I know how to forge relationship with people when they walk into the showroom. So in a school, and me as a principal, I learned I got to forge relationship with people that may not like me just because my title is principal. So just on that alone, I'm not with this dude. So now let me use those people skills to forge a relationship with you, because once I have the relationship with you, meaning once I've established trust with you, now I can sell you anything. But you gotta have them people skills. So it's not a compromise of who you are or your soul. It's I gotta meet people where they are, because the same thing happens in a classroom. There's some youngster in any given classroom that for whatever reason does not want to hear what teacher has to say. So it's not that the teacher is not a good teacher, but it's just that whatever's going on in this youngster's life is going on in this youngster's life. But if I have the people skills, as opposed to the math skill, the reading skill, the writing skill, but the people skill to connect with this youngster that's distant and doesn't seem to want what I'm giving, now once I form that bond, then I'm in position to give you what I was going to give you in the first place. So those people skills are crucial.
Other questions?
Can I jump in and ask the question?
Yes, sir.
I'm not even sure how to frame the question, but what I'll start off with is, first, again, as they've said, the others before me, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Listening to the why and not deviating away from that because of the forces, I think was something that I truly needed to hear as I sit inside of my home that's packed up for me to move in 2 weeks, and I'm not sure where I'm going. Those forces have definitely been a deterring factor for me, and it's almost caused me to walk away from my career several times. And so I guess just not to take up much of anybody's time, but just to kind of give you a brief synopsis of what's going on. So I've been here in the Denver, Colorado area teaching for 10 years. And in that,
DPS?
Say it again.
DPS?
No, I'm not in DPS. I'm in Douglas County currently.
I was there last year. Were you there when I was there?
No, I didn't. I probably didn't even know about it.
Yeah, I was there last summer.
Oh, wow. No, I didn't. But I've been here, and I have friends who are in DPS. The biggest thing is just trying to maneuver through. So I am a product, as I tell people, of Black teachers. I was the first male in my family to graduate high school, let alone college. And I'm a single father of a 10-year-old Black son of mine. And so anyways, there's just a lot that keeps me pushing forward and my why. But as I'm trying to move from the classroom to administrator, I'm finding a struggle. So leaving here, I knew definitely being a person who looks like me, it's hard for me to move out of that classroom. Everybody wants me to be this mentor teacher, this teacher who, shows new teachers how to come in. But when it's time for me to progress to that next level, then there's an issue. And so I'm finding, even as I go to interview in Houston, some of the people who look like me are some of the deterring factors as well, because they'll say, oh, well, you just need to teach one more year. Well, I've had my admin license for 3 years, and though I love the classroom, I'm ready to make a larger impact. And the only feedback I can get is, oh, well, just apply online. It's almost like nobody wants to kind of take your hand and guide you a little bit more. And so I don't know, that's where it's been deterring, because I have people I interviewed just for one position in Houston, and I didn't get it. And the principal, she was a Black lady, and she spoke with me offline, and she said, if I'm transparent with you, basically she's in a white school and she's a Black principal with 2 Black leaders on her leadership team. If she hires me, it doesn't fit the demographic of her school, which is a whole nother story. But just seeing that they all come back with, I say, is there any feedback, anything I can grow from? No, you interview well, you have the skill set, then what can I do next? And I can't get anything but, will you teach for me 1 year? Well, that started 3 years ago, and that's why after having my admin license, I can't move. So what would be your advice for me when I apply for principal and you tell me, oh, you're great, but just teach for me 1 year and then I'll move you. And here we are 4 years later.
I'm not even doing that. Let me first ask you this question. Y'all brothers, hang in there with us too. Maybe some of this is applicable to you as well. I know you've got that Principal 50, but have you watched the videos?
I have watched the videos. I watched the videos, and then I was doing the Saturday classes.
The thoughts to consider for an assistant principal job interview, parts 1 and 2. All right. Now, here's the thing. There's in addition to those, there's another one I talk about, positioning yourself. When I was in your shoes one day, we all were, right? Those of us in administration who were ready to make that move into administration. I was in your shoes, but I was going to have to compete with just the masses of everybody else that was in all them graduate school programs here in Jersey for the same few jobs. So now I got to ask myself the question: how do I distinguish me from the masses out there, and particularly those that may have experience already, right? Or those who may be connected, whatever it is, how do I distinguish me? And here's my answer. It may not work for everybody. I don't know if it's going to work in your situation, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. Here's what I said. If I apply for a job through the normal channels, that means I'm going to do what everyone else does. So when they receive my resume, they're going to receive everybody else's resume. So what's going to draw them to mine? So I said, I can't do it that way. I was a young teacher, and I wanted to be an assistant principal, which would have made me the youngest assistant principal, and then subsequently the youngest principal. So I said, so what do I do? I said, well, there's one person that makes the decision. That's the person I got to get to know. So I made an appointment to see the superintendent of schools. I'm classroom teacher. He doesn't know me from a can of paint. I said, Doc, I want to be a principal in this district. His words to me were, do you have any credentials? I said, no. He said, you have no degree, no credentials? I said, no, sir. He said to me, why are you here? I said, because I needed you to know that I was born. I needed you to know that I exist. I need you to know that there's a hungry guy right here that wants to be a principal in your district. I said, Doc, come to my school. Told him which school I was in because he didn't know. Come to my school and visit and watch me work as often as possible, right? He come to my class and sit in the class with his crew, with his cabinet. And they sit in my class and watch me. So now when it was time for him to make a hiring decision, guess who was on the top of the list? Me, right? So I got the job, served as an AP for 1 year because I went to him and said, Doc, I just want to remind you, I did not go to school to be an assistant principal. I'm an assistant principal as a stepping stone. I want to be a principal. He made me a principal the next year, right? So now the rumor throughout the district, the whole city, Kafele must be related to the superintendent because who moves that quick? Kafele didn't know the superintendent. He had the audacity and the wherewithal to forge a relationship with the superintendent. So now when it was time to hire me, he ain't gonna think of nobody else but me. See, that's stepping way outside the box, right? And see, so I'm not saying you got to use that strategy, but I am saying you got to move differently from the norm, right? So when they give you that feedback, absorb that feedback, but don't limit yourself to anywhere, right? There are places out there that superintendent out there where you are now is a brother, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dr.
Tucker.
Tucker, because he came from Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
Is your relationship with him okay?
It is. That was what I was going to say for off camera. What I will say is when he moved here, I picked him up from the airport and signed for his car to be delivered. So he knows me on a personal level.
Look,
Yes.
and I know we got folks listening, but listen, I did consulting work for him in Cincinnati. Then he brought me to Douglas County last year. I was talking to all the administrators, all of them in that auditorium at one of them high schools.
Mm-hmm.
Tell him you met me, right? And I will vouch for you, right? Tell him you met me, and tell him I like to talk. That I like to talk to him, right? And we can put that together. Maybe you don't have to leave Houston, Denver. Stay in Denver, right? Unless you committed to going to Houston.
Well, my family, like I said, I'm a single father. My son's mom lives in Houston too, so I think it's time for him to. We've been here for 10 years, and he's 10 years old. It's time for him to be around his family to have a bigger support. So yeah, I am going to go ahead and go to Houston. Now I got to land something there, but
the bottom line, distinguish yourself when you're there. Make yourself seen. Toot your own horn. Some people say, I don't self-promote. No. Who else going to do it? Toot your own horn. Promote yourself. Sell yourself. Make yourself obvious when you sit in those meetings. You listen. Let me give you this one example. This is for everybody on the call too. I led 4 different schools. The second school I led, hear me somebody. The second school I led, it was a group interview. It was 15 people sitting in a conference room, right? At that time, we're talking 2002. The New Jersey Nets, right? They're all young. They didn't always play in Brooklyn for the young heads out there, right? So the New Jersey Nets, Jason Kidd was the hottest thing in the NBA as far as a point guard. So now I said, okay, I'm going to use that to get this job. See, and that's what I mean about stepping outside the box. I walk in the room, I pull out the chair, it's 15 people looking at me. And as I was sitting down, I said, the Jason Kidd y'all been looking for is right here. You don't need to look any further. I got the job right there, right? So now they asked me questions, but I already caught their attention in a mighty way by saying that because I knew they knew who Jason Kidd was. 10 minutes after I'm driving my car back home after the interview, the superintendent calls me. Hey, Kafele, you want the job? Yeah. He said, man, that opening blew us away. You got it. It's yours, right? So that was it because I stepped outside the box, man. I did what everybody else. Ain't nobody going to no interview like that. I did it in a way that I'm going to capture their attention. I'm not going to be arrogant, right? Because I didn't go in there arrogant. I went in there humble, but I just said, look, Jason Kidd, you've been looking for, I'm here. Right? I'm your point guard. And they're like, oh. So now they want to hear more. I went in there prepared. Give them more. I'm hired. That's how you do that, man. You got to wow these people, man. You got to make them know that you here. They got to know. Give me the pronunciation of your first name.
Valerie.
Yeah, Valerie, like that.
Yeah, Valerie Schenkel. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they got to know Valerie. When they hear your name, when they see your face, they know I need this dude, man. I can't do anything without him. That's how you got to position yourself, as if you were a defender on a receiver going down the sideline. If you're the cornerback, if you out of position, he gonna beat you every time. But if you in position, then the probability for you deflecting the ball or intercepting it or just keep preventing a touchdown increases probably exponentially. That's how you got to position yourself. That's how I position myself in everything I do.
Perfect. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Sorry to take up so much time.
No, man, I ain't got nothing to do with it. We on stay at home, but see, where some of y'all live, y'all out there partying. I'm in New Jersey. We stay at home and we wear these still, right? So.
Hey, Principal Kafele, this is Jamar Marks. And I kind of want to add a little bit to this conversation right here because I think it's relevant. A couple of years ago, you came to the Georgia Department of Education conference in Macon, Georgia, and you spoke to us. I don't know if you remember that.
I do.
And you saw how you addressed the school and you did a bunch of different things. And it was really powerful then. And it's really good to kind of see this thing go full circle for me right here, right now, sitting here with you. But I also want to add, first, I want to thank you for your time.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
But I also add some encouragement to the rest of you guys. 2 years ago, I interviewed for my very first assistant principal jobs. And in order to prepare for those jobs, I watched Principal Kafele's getting ready for the assistant principal videos. I think there were 2 of them.
Yeah.
I studied them day and night for a full week. I took notes. I researched questions. I went into those interviews and everything that Principal Kafele said came up in those interviews. How are you going to do this? How are you going to do that? How are you going to address discipline? What is your plan for culture and climate? All those different things. I nailed those interviews. I nailed those interviews so much that even though I didn't get those jobs, the principals reached out to me afterward and said, listen, you are one of the most dynamic gentlemen I've ever interviewed. And unfortunately, there are some things that are in place that were in the way of you getting those jobs that we can't control. So sometimes we get these interviews and we're ready to handle them, but there are things in the way. But I want to add this. After that, I told myself I'm going to go into the schools that I'm working in and I'm going to work so hard and I'm going to make them become mad that they did not accept me as their assistant principals. I did that so good that this area soups were calling me and saying, hey, I think I might want you here. I think I might want you there. Went to interviews again, didn't get those jobs. But it goes back to what Principal Kafele is saying. You put yourself in position and your time will come. You know, so just remain encouraged.
Yeah. Don't walk away from your why, right? Just stay rooted in it, planted in it, grounded in it, in that position. The one that's got your name on it, it will arise.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else? I'm here. Jump on in.
I have a quick question. Just as my first year teaching, I'm very passionate about incorporating same thing that you were doing your first year teaching in Brooklyn, like African American studies into the lesson. But for me, as a first teacher, it was really tough because I didn't really know how to like make. For example, I teach third grade, so I don't know how to make stories about, you know, whatever, how make it connected to Black people, you know. So how did you do that, and what is your advice for making your lessons more African American and African centered?
Is your student body diverse, or is it pretty much African American?
It's all African American. City.
So there's this example I use all the time. Let's take, for example, been using it for many years. let's say that this piece of paper I have in my hand. Let's say that this is a curriculum, right? Mm-hmm. And this curriculum, we know that it doesn't have the information that speaks to our community. It's just this generic Eurocentric document, and we got to use this. So I say that master teacher can take this dead document called the curriculum and literally breathe life into it, right? So now, to use a very simplistic example that I typically use to make the point, because I can do it very quickly. I got lights around me so that you guys can see me. But here's the thing: when I was in grade school, they slipped in there Thomas Edison invented them, right? And I took it. I had no reason to question that. I just took it and ran with it, and that stayed in my psyche for the rest of my life until about 1985, when I was introduced to the author Ivan Van Sertima. And when I read Ivan Van Sertima and McKinley Burt Jr. as well. Ivan Van Sertima, Blacks in Science, and McKinley Burt Jr., Black Inventors of America. They both had a man that you all probably know by the name of Lewis Latimer. So when I studied Lewis Latimer, I said, wow, you mean these people gave me this lie for these 20-something years, and now and these bulbs are not Thomas Edison bulbs at all, right? So Thomas Edison had created a prototype, but it wasn't effective. It was dangerous. It got dangerously hot. It was very expensive to produce, and it didn't burn long. It flickered out. So Lewis Latimer in 1880 was one of his assistants, and he knew what the problem was. So he said, it just needs that carbon thread filament. So now when he put the filament in, the bulb is doing what your bulbs and my bulbs are doing right now. But then he went on and wrote a textbook about as thick as this one on electrical lighting. Then when the cities were ready to install lighting, because they didn't have electrical lighting, obviously. So now New York, London, Montreal, Philadelphia, etc., were ready to install lighting. Lewis Latimer supervised the installation of lighting in various different major cities, not only in America, but across the world. So my point is this: with this dead document, but because you and I have a certain knowledge base, so it doesn't matter what era of American history. It could be the 1600s, the 1700s, the 1800s, the 1900s. There's no year, there's no era that Black folks are not significant within that time. It's just a matter of us knowing the history. So now if we're talking about 1880 or 1881 with the invention of a light bulb, then and Thomas Edison or even Alexander Graham Bell with a phone, where if it wasn't for Lewis Latimer to write the blueprints for the phone, there is no phone, because you can't get a patent without a blueprint. So Lewis Latimer was a draftsman, so he wrote the blueprints for the original phone. So now what I'm saying all that to say, now because of what I know that is not documented in the curriculum, now I can take that curriculum and I can infuse that which is not here and give them a much more well-rounded lesson than I would I was solely relying on this. So I'm going to do it strategically, because I don't want to come across in a way that youngsters are going to unintentionally get me in some kind of trouble that I don't need to be in. So I'm going to be strategic about how I teach it, as opposed to so for example, I'm going to teach it, but I'm going to engage them at the same time, right? Because every now and then you got some youngster in there that perceives that as teaching anti-white or teaching hate or whatever it is, because they're dealing with their own damage, right? So we're trying to repair that. So that's what I mean by being strategic, because every now and then I've had that youngster, right? So I'm trying to help this youngster to love self, but youngster received it differently and felt that youngster need to go to the white teacher and say, Kafele doing this and that, right? So yeah, so it's understanding the 400 years of damage that our people have endured, and then we see the manifestation in a youngster being introduced to self and be offended by it and go run and tell somebody white that it happened.
That was really good. That was really good. I liked that a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, just keep on growing your knowledge. Keep keep on figuring out how to infuse it. So let me just throw this one thing at you. So if you're talking about if you're teaching social studies history and you're talking about the American Revolution, for example, right? Or you're talking about, or even if you're talking about Independence Day, 4th of July, whatever. Well, I have a ritual. Frederick Douglass' speech about the 4th of July, why I oppose the 4th of July. I literally read that speech every 4th of July. I sit on my porch outside and I read that speech. It's a very difficult speech to read because he was so intellectual with words, right? But I read that speech. So now if I'm in school, which when I was, and I'm talking about the American Revolution, I'm talking about independence, I'm talking about Frederick Douglass too, right? I'm talking about that speech too. If I'm talking about the war, I'm talking about Peter Salem and Salem Poor, soldiers that distinguished themselves in the war, because if I don't highlight them, then you'll have black kids, white kids, all kids thinking that these wars were fought by white people only, right? So it's like, let me get this to you. Y'all got a minute? Let me get this to you.
Yeah, we got
I was working with a school yesterday, and we were talking about culturally relevant instruction, right? And to make the point, because I just like to use as many illustrations as I can. So in talking to them about being culturally relevant, so that young people see themselves on the page, so that young people see themselves in the lesson, I said, let me bring this thing to life. And I talked about me as a speaker, because I live on the road as a speaker, so I'm out doing 200 presentations a year, so I'm all over the place except for during a global pandemic. My speaking is on this computer. That's probably why I'm running my mouth so much, right? So here's the thing. I said to them, your typical American city or town, typically it doesn't mean a lot to me culturally. It's just somewhere that I go, I do a keynote or I do a training, and then I drive back to the airport, catch a flight to the next city, and then I repeat the process. So if I'm on the road all week, 5 times doing this process. But if I'm in a city that has relevance to the Black experience, then it's not jump in the rental, drive to the hotel, wake up in the morning, drive to the vicinity, then finish the presentation, drive to the hotel, and then start it over. Now I gotta rethink my schedule, because let's say, for example, I'm in Greensboro, North Carolina, or nearby. Then I got to take in that sit-in history in terms of the Greensboro 4 on February 1st, 1960. Let's say I'm in Atlanta. There's a whole lot there. Let's say I'm in Selma. I got to go on the bridge. Let's say I'm in Birmingham. I got to go to the 16th Street Baptist Church. Let's say I'm in Alabama. I'm in Montgomery. I got to go to the bus stop where Rosa Parks had boarded the bus. Let's say I'm in Boston. I got to go where Crispus Attucks was assassinated for America's independence. Let's say I'm in Rochester. I got to go to Frederick Douglass House. Let's say I'm in Dorchester County, Maryland. I got to go to Harriet Tubman's house. Let's say I'm in Little Rock. I got to go to Central High School. Right? I got to be in these places, right? Let's say I'm in Hampton. I got to go to the Nat Turner Trail. Let's say I'm in Memphis. I got to go to the National Museum where Dr. King was assassinated. Let's say I'm in Money, Mississippi. I got to go to the Bryant grocery store where Emmett Till allegedly whistled at a white woman. Let's say I'm in Ruleville, Mississippi. Then I got to go to Fannie Lou Hamer's grave site. Let's say I'm in Tuskegee. Then I got to go to Moulton Field where the Tuskegee Airmen trained. Let's say I'm in Harlem. I got to go to the Audubon where Malcolm was assassinated, and so many other places. Let's say I'm in Omaha. I got to go to where he was born. Let's say I'm in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is in the news a lot lately. Then obviously I got to go to that Black Wall Street area a lot. Let's say I'm in Rosewood, same thing. Let's say I'm in Jackson, Mississippi, which is yesterday was the anniversary of Medgar Evers' assassination. I got to go to his house, right? Or the Greyhound bus stop where all sorts of brutality are taking place as well in Jackson. So like these cities become culturally relevant for me. Because these cities represent a struggle that ensued during different times of the different parts of the era, and I want to take it in. Although I've been on the Edmund Pettus Bridge no less than 20 times, I still make a beeline to that bridge every time I'm in Montgomery. If I'm in Selma, if I'm somewhere where within 100 miles, I'm walking across that bridge, right? So that I could once again, for the umpteenth time, take in the energy of the 600 that had the audacity to cross the bridge knowing what was on the other side, right? So because that's culturally relevant for me. So when I'm talking to a teacher, I'm going to give them the same thing. And then I'm going to say that's to make them understand, because with those cities that I just cited, I see myself. See, I see me. Quick story. I went to Boston, and I know one of you brothers is from Boston. My wife and I went to Boston 2 years ago. I was speaking at that, what do you call it, Metco conference. And we went downtown there where the courthouse is on King Street looking for the site where Crispus Attucks was shot, right, and killed. And nobody knew, right? So I go in the hotel, I'm looking for markers and monuments, nothing there. So then we go inside. I said, sir, where's the marker that designates Crispus Attucks, Black man, first person killed, first person shot and killed for America's independence? Where's the marker? They said, I don't know. I said, well, give me your boss. They got the boss. Where's the marker, sir? I think it's somewhere down that way. King Street's right here. I know that, and I'm not from Boston. There was nothing there. I said, so therefore, in terms of, because I can't think about it, y'all. I can't connect with nothing else in colonial Boston. Ain't nothing in colonial Boston that I can connect with culturally. As an American, I might want to learn it, which I have, but I'm not going to connect with it culturally with pride. Like, oh man, Paul Revere and all this. No, The only one I can connect with culturally is Crispus Attucks because he was Black. And that piece was not there for me to celebrate. See, so then I say to the teachers, now let's transfer that back to your classroom. That kid is looking for self. What is it about your math class that youngster sees me? That science class, I see me. There's social studies, I see me. That whatever, I see me. If I don't see me, then what do I need it for? What's this got to do with my life after 3 o'clock when the dismissal bell rings? See, that's the bottom line for me. So therefore, a teacher has to be culturally relevant in what he or she does. Let me stop running my mouth. Jump on in here. I think Charles was ready to jump in France.
Yeah, I love this. I love it. I love your point you're talking about, saying that our students are looking for self, because I completely agree that they are looking for self, not just us in person being there in the buildings, but also providing that culturally relevant content that they want.
Absolutely. That's the piece that teachers go to pre-service training, undergrad school. That's the piece they don't get. And see, now they come into a classroom. Think about it. See, God blessed me with being the ability to be this consultant, because what it did, it enabled me to see what most of us will never see. Most of us are not going to spend our lives in 1,000 different schools, right? We'll know the few schools in our vicinity, but because of the work I do, I'm in all these schools. So I get to see schools. I get to see instruction from the East Coast, the West Coast, the North, the South, but I also get to interact with people from all over. So one of the most intriguing interactions for me is when I say to the teacher, typically during a break or during lunch, when I'm talking to the teacher and I say, hey, teacher, young teacher particularly, I'll say, hey, teacher, talk to me. Tell me about your intimate familiarity with Black people, not your children, but Black people before you became a teacher. Now, a lot of folks, a lot of them, they'll say to me, I don't have any. So I'll say to them, I say, so are you saying to me then, these 5th graders you teach now, these 6th graders, whatever it is this your initial intimate exposure to Black people through these 6th graders? Yes. Now I'm saying in my head, that's a problem. Because that means your whole life was seeing Black folk from at a distance. So you saw us in the mall, passing by in the mall, in the store, at the stadium, at the concert, and then you saw the imagery that they gave us on the TV. But in terms of you getting to know intimately Black people, right? You never had that opportunity. So now your initial exposure to Black people is a Black child. And that Black child may not have the knowledge base that I've been talking about for the past hour. So now you're not even in position to be culturally relevant because you don't even know Black people. You don't know us. And then if you've got leadership there that doesn't have the wherewithal or be able to relate to what I just said, then that might be perpetuated throughout her entire 30-year career that I'm teaching these Black kids, but I don't know Black people. So now everything I think I know about Black people is what I see in my 5th graders, in my 6th grade, whatever the case may be. So now, but if leadership has a grasp of that and is really serious about cultural relevance and cultural responsiveness within an equitable learning environment that takes into consideration social justice education, now we're in better position to build those bridges, to make those bonds with that student. But what I just said, that one sentence, that's a whole lot of work, y'all. Y'all know that. That's a whole lot of work. That's a whole lifetime of work trying to fit it into like a very short, finite period of time. It's not easy.
Right.
All right.
Hey, can I ask one more question of you, Principal Kafele?
Good, man. I'm on here till y'all get sick of me.
I'm gonna say this will be our final question. I appreciate this, but I want
all right. So you started
I got nothing to do but go sit on the step like this.
Hey, you started off talking about the George Floyd situation, right?
Yes, sir.
And Jonathan will tell you I was very, very touched by it. I was emotional. I was angry. It felt like I was going through the 7 stages of grief in a week.
Yes, sir.
But a lot of my friends want to talk about the economic things and the economic impact to make a change. I always go back to the education part of it. And I want to get your thoughts on the system as a whole. Does it benefit us to try to fix the inequities in education, or to work on tearing the system completely down and rebuilding it back up with equity for everybody? What are your thoughts on integrated school versus all Black institutions or academies and things like that?
You know, as an let me this is personal now. I'm from a city called East Orange, as I said before, East Orange, New Jersey, which is probably the blackest city in America.
I'm from Detroit.
Yeah, but I mean the whole thing, and it's only 3.9 square miles, right? So all the elected officials, all the everybody, right? Except for a lot of the teachers. Now, that environment gave me an opportunity to just come in and be myself. So back in those days, I wasn't a suit and tie guy. I wore my African garb and my kufi to lead the school, right? We started the day off. We never ever started a day without reciting the Nguzo Saba, the 7 principles of Kwanzaa in Kiswahili and English, but we didn't just recite them as ritual. The 7 principles were the foundation of who we were. We also sang Lift Every Voice and Sing as a part of that morning message. And we had my own message every day, right? In addition to all the other announcements. That's the school where we had the courses that I talked about. In addition to that book, Malefi Asante, if you're familiar with Dr. Tony Browder, he wrote a book called Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization. We made that book a 7th grade text, right? 7th grade, imagine that. And the students were loving it. So here's my point as you asked the question. What I envision in terms of that, because see, I didn't have the opportunity to do that everywhere I went, but I had it there. But you put Black children in a situation like that, and I don't mean it has to be an African-centered school, because everybody's not, people got their, we're not a monolithic people. But I am saying this. It was an environment where everybody understood their role as it related to Black children. That's a dismantling of what we have right now, right? Mm-hmm. That's not just infusing equity. Because see, here's one of the challenges with equity. I was an equitable teacher before there was language for equitable practices. Because see, back when I started in the 80s and the 90s, equity was a word typically associated with home ownership and the value of a home. It was not something that we infused into a classroom, right? So I just knew, and equity and social justice. So I'm doing these things, and in the beginning years, I'm like sneaking to do it, making sure the coast is clear, and then I can do what I got to do. But then somewhere along the way, it became in vogue, fashionable, right? Social justice education. Equitable classroom practices. But see, I sit in auditoriums, I stand in auditoriums teaching equity all day. And I see people in my audiences who figuratively look like this.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, so I'm not going to say they're literally doing that, because if they did, I would call them out, because I'm just in that place in my life where that's what I'm going to do. But figuratively, this is what they're doing. They're looking at the floor, their hands are folded, and they're saying, I can't wait for this Negro to finish up and get up out of here, right? So here's the thing. As I began to analyze that over the years, I said, equity, you can't just teach equity, mm-hmm. right? Because equity is not solely something that you learn. I said, equity is a reflection of who you are. Equity is a window to your soul, right? So I'm saying here, when we talk about equity, I can teach you the principles of equitable practice in a classroom, but that doesn't mean you're going to embrace it if that's not who you are. Because if I'm saying that equity means I'm going to meet each youngster where you are, regardless of where you are, but that teacher is sitting there with a mindset of, I'm a math teacher. And I'm going to teach this math, and either you're going to get it or you're not going to get it. But whether you do or you don't, that is not my problem. My role, they pay me to teach a subject. See, and that's why I always make the distinction. I say, hey teacher, do you teach math or do you teach Matthew? See, math is a content area. Matthew is a human being. So I'm asking, so I say, folks, don't, thank you there, Travis. I say, don't tell me that you teach content, because that makes me think that the children are secondary. Tell me you teach children, and then you teach content to children. But the sequence is children first. So that system, and I can only speak about it in theory because it's long and drawn out. But in theory, it has to be dismantled because it's not going to start with the school system. It's going to start with K-12 in terms of how folks are being educated, and then culminating into how they're being trained in undergraduate school. Right?
Awesome.
It's so many folks in undergrad school that's not prepared to be in the classroom with our children.
Awesome. Yes, sir.
Appreciate you. I know y'all brothers got to go, man. I've been going, man. I know.
No, you dropping a lot of gems, and this was really, I know for me personally, I can speak for myself that a lot of stuff that you hit on was exactly what I needed to hear. And was extremely uplifting. I'll share with the group briefly that I recently applied myself to some leadership positions. One, I didn't get an interview. Second one, I got an interview but didn't get the position. However, I did step outside the box and made sure I communicated with my superintendent, which I will be following up again with to connect with him. So I appreciate your words were right on time. Some of the questions were right on time. I like to move us now and ask that brothers turn on their cameras, and we're going to try to take a group picture.
Hey, real quick before you do, since I got y'all here, those of you that want to move into leadership or are in leadership, this is my new one, the Assistant Principal 50.
Yes, sir.
There you go. Yeah.
Right.
This is selling like hotcakes, and it's a mission. I'm trying to transform to get people to rethink the role of the assistant principal, the aspiring principal 50, that one that wants to be that principal, or the new principal. That's the principal 50, right? And then lastly, a closing attitude gap too. I don't even have that one over here. Yeah, but that one too. And then, is my school a better school because I lead? Right. So you can get these wherever books are sold, ASCD, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, any of those places. But those are my leadership books. And then lastly, I do a leadership institute every summer, but this is the first year that it has to be virtual. So that's July 15 and 16. If you're interested, we're talking principal leadership. And you just go to my website at principalkafele.com and scroll down on the homepage, and you'll see the link and check it out. And then my free stuff, that's every Saturday morning at 11 o'clock Eastern, the virtual Assistant Principal Leadership Academy, which I did today. And that's for 18 weeks. So we're just in 7 weeks in now. So we go all the way to August 29th. So if you want information on being an effective assistant principal, or if you're a principal and need to rethink how you're utilizing your assistant principal or assistant superintendent or professor, this is for you. Come on with me live with the videos during the week.
Can I get y'all to hold those books up again? I want to get a screenshot of that. All your Kafele books.
I'm gonna hold this one out.
Yeah.
Hold one of mine
with Principal Kafele's.
Hold that. Let me get that screenshot.
If you go to Amazon and just type in Kafele, they'll all pop up. I already went and purchased them about 5 minutes ago.
Appreciate it.
Got it. Good. Got
it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I appreciate that, Dre. At the end of the day, that's how we sell our stuff, with us looking out for each other.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Did we get that photo yet?
Yes, sir. Khalil, is Khalil able to turn his camera on? It's kind of, can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry about that.
All right, there you go. All right, let me get the screenshot.
Let me take it.
Hang on just 1 second.
Okay.
I'm in the small box. So.
Yeah, you're in the middle. You're right in the middle, so it's perfect.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's perfect. Hang on.
Dr. Marks, just let me know when you're done so I can share my screen. We can close out.
All right, one more. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. All right. I think we're good.
Yeah, process have to retweet
Yep, it's good.
and share it.
I'm gonna share my screen again. I'm gonna share a couple things with you brothers, and I'm gonna let you guys go. I appreciate you guys staying on. Principal Kafele, again, I can't thank you enough. This has been extremely uplifting.
Appreciate you. Appreciate all of you.
Principal Kafele, I shot you an email if you get a chance.
I'll get on it today.
Thank you.
All right. So if you look at your screen right now, can everybody see? Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in the calendar, two things. In the calendar invite, I included a PDF file of these slides and links specifically to Principal Kafele's website and the books that he has out. So please check that link. The other thing that I want you guys to note is that we will have a virtual launch party September 5th. And we're in the works of planning out what that's going to look like. And between now and then, what I need from each of you is I sent an email to each of you asking you to provide your reflection on your experience. That is optional. You don't have to do it, but your reflection pieces will be included in the publication. That is due June 17th. Also, you may have noticed that I have been doing a Facebook fundraiser to help with some of the behind-the-scenes costs of putting the publication together. That fundraiser, you're welcome to share that out with your networks. The fundraiser will end July 6th. And also, if you have individuals who are considering doing any sponsorship or advertisement, they can reach out to us. And on here, these are all links, direct links to being able to get additional information on that. Do brothers have any questions as we close out, or any final thoughts that anybody wants to chime in and just share?
Yeah. When was the reflection email sent, or are you sending it now?
I already sent it, but I can resend it again after we hang up here. I'll resend it to everybody.
Okay.
And it's just a variety of questions. You're not obligated to do it. I just wanted to give brothers insights and their background and their experiences to include those valuable pieces into the publication itself as well.
Well, I just want to say something real quick. First off, Principal Kafele, thank you for taking the time to do this, because I know you did the Institute early in the morning and you're still on your grind. So you already know how much I appreciate you, personally. And then to all the other brothers, I mean, this is what we need to do. We already know these issues are not issues. They've been in existence for a long time. Now is the time to just act. I'm past the optics. I'm sure y'all are past the optics and the symbolism. We gotta put in this work. So I appreciate the dialogue today and just having the time to fellowship with you all.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. I would also like to jump on that. I mean, I put it in the chat, but I noticed that you said Medco, and the school that I work for in Lexington does have a Medco program. And you said something that did resound with me, saying that a lot of our children, a lot of our co-workers, they experience through bad cultures through our children, which is very true. Yeah. So, I just want to see if it make it possible, and just because I speak to superintendent, because I moved up that quick, because I'm not playing around. Like, there's no diversity, so I went to go speak to the boss, and I want to make it possible that you come speak to our whole district, because we have a problem.
Yeah, you got all my information. Just go on that website and reach out to me, and we'll make it happen.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah. I guess I have one final question for you, Principal Kafele.
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna put you on the spot. How can our legacy cohort show our appreciation to you?
Oh no, you brothers just keep doing the work. That's it. That's what my life is committed to. And I moved out of the school, and let me tell you why. Because when I listen to all of you give your brief bio, there's a lot of entrepreneurs on here. There's a lot of folks moving into consulting. So hear me well on this. I don't really have opportunity to really share this a lot because I don't have the context for it often. But I made it. I didn't leave my school because I didn't want to be a principal anymore. But I love my principalship. I mean, I loved it dearly. Particularly the last school I was at, I stayed 6 years, which is long for me because I'm a guy that doesn't stay places too long. So, I'm competitive. Once, you fix something, now you're ready to fix something else, right? So it made me long because I just love the students. I love my staff. But there was something else inside of me that said, but I don't love having a boss, right? I had a superintendent. And see, as I was getting older, I knew that it was going to be a point where I'm going to be older than my boss and have more experience and more success than my bosses. So I said, at the time I was 50 in 2011 when I left, I said, this is the time. So I left without having clients, right? All I had was a vision. I said, I want to be a national, international speaker and consultant, but I had no clients. But I said to my boss, I said, I'm out. I had a son in college, the second one getting ready to go to college, and the third one later on who I had to pay their tuition, got to pay health insurance because I won't have benefits anymore. So mortgage, all that stuff. And I had nothing, but I had belief in myself, right? I had faith. So I stepped out, as they would say, on faith. And because I wanted to be able to look in my mirror every morning and say that I want to be able to look at the mirror and look at the image in my mirror and say, good morning, boss. Have the best day ever today. So I gave this word success my own personal definition. And I said success is the ability to live one's own life on one's own terms. So although I define anybody living their dream as successful within that definition, for me, I said, but I'm answering to somebody. And I'm at an age at the age of 50 back then that I don't want to answer to anybody except my wife sitting over there, right? But outside of that, I said, I don't want to answer to anybody, right? So I left so that I could have total freedom, right? Financial freedom, right? Call my shots. So that's what I do. So I'm self-employed, Principal Kafele Consulting. And that's how I'm living. And this is how I'm going to live for the rest of my life until I can't do it anymore. Right. So for you guys out there who are the entrepreneurs, because there were several of you, it's tough. It's tough building a client base. Right. But it's doable. All you got to do is remind yourself other people are doing it. Right. So if other people are doing it, you could do it. So but you got to stay focused. Right. And you got to stay singular. Because if you all out here and all over here, you might lose some of that focus. If you want to be that independent, autonomous, self-employed consultant, and maybe you hire a staff and a team and all that kind of stuff, then maintain that narrow focus, stay on your grind, and never separate yourself or detach yourself from your why. That's critical, right? So I just had to throw that in there because I know it's some folks in here that are entrepreneurs, but I think you kind of doing the entrepreneur thing, but you're doing the other thing here, and perhaps you want to be totally free. Well, it's doable, but you got to work your stuff in order to get there.
Thank you, Brother Graham. Before we go, Brother Graham, since you asked the first question, I need you to send me a text message. I got a free copy of Principal Kafele's book. So make sure you text me your address so I can get this in the mail on Monday.
Awesome. Yes, sir. Will do.
Nice.
All right, brothers. Thank you for your time. Have a good rest of the afternoon.
Y'all stay safe now.
You too.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care.
Right.
Can I ask a quick question, Jonathan, before we head off? Just what's the difference between the advertisement